Welcome to the fourth and final series of the presentation related to the allocation model for Seattle colleges. This time, this particular topic will focus on enrollment, which is about 71% of our operating budget. So the enrollment-based part of the state allocation, it actually comes to us in two buckets. The first one, of course, is which I'll explain after this presentation. But I want to focus on the priority enrollment. So one of the things that's in our enrollment allocation base is priority of providing additional funding for ABE or beta and skills gap. So in this particular funding, which is of course just 5% of the total funding, Seattle colleges is getting 481,000 more from fiscal year 2026, starting from 6.5 million to 6 million. And that's distributed and reallocated as follows. Central is expected to reduce their priority enrollment allocation by 451. North is increasing by 109. But South, who has a majority of our ABE and skills gap enrollment, is expected to increase by 823. And you see here the basis of the data. It's just based on fiscal 2025 data. And so you will see the distribution between the actual enrollment for fiscal year 25 for Seattle Central, North, South for skill gap, similarly for ABE or beta at 510, 608, 776. So you see the proportionate share distribution of that ratio. And you see that for South Seattle, who has the highest number of disenrollments, roughly around about 41%. The next part is really what we call the district enrollment allocation base. And this one in the new model is now going to be based on actual enrollment, 4-year average, historical FTE, and headcount. So like I stated earlier, the enrollment part of our budget is 71%. And if you further disaggregate that 71%, 53% of that comes from the state allocation, while 47% of that comes to tuition. And this particular tuition includes tuition we receive for international and Running Start students. So the private good, as what I would refer to, they're easier to project or estimate or plan for. We anticipate the number of enrollment we expect to grow, multiply that by the tuition rate or any kind of tuition rate increase in order to predict how much revenue we can anticipate. The public good side state allocation is a little bit more difficult in order to project, because projecting our share of the allocation also needs to consider the average growth of all the other colleges. So for instance, if the average growth of all other colleges in our system is 9%, but Seattle colleges grew by 10%, then we can expect to get a greater share of the allocation pot for enrollment. However, if the average growth of all other colleges is 11% and we only grew by 10%, then we can anticipate to decrease or reduce our allocation. And so because of the nature of how the state allocation, we have created a financial model where we can predict scenario and set targets in enrollment in order for us to really position ourselves in the future. So just to recap once again, this current fiscal period, 2026, it is based on the old model, which is based on targets. Starting this July 1, the fiscal year 2027, the new model with a 6-year smooth-in will now be based on actual enrollments based on fiscal year 22 to 25. And then fiscal year 28 will now be based on enrollments on fiscal year 23 to 26. And of course, so on with fiscal year 2029. And so that's why it's important that the enrollment data or our enrollment performance this year has an impact to our state allocation in fiscal year 2028. So enrollment data we have impacts our tuition that we're receiving this year, but will not impact our state allocation until fiscal year 2028. So how does the financial help us in terms of scenario and positioning ourselves in maximizing our state allocation? So the formula first and foremost consider where we're at. So In the current model, which is based on target, Central gets 38%, North gets 30%, and South gets 32%. And this is how we distribute whatever state allocation we have available, which is about 50 million in this year to the state. We did have an adjustment relating to the apprenticeship, where Central and North, in order to meet the target, take on some of the apprenticeship enrollment in order for us to meet the target. And so an adjustment has been made. So a redistribution ends up this way, where Central gets 18.8, North gets 14.8, and South gets 7.2. In the new model for fiscal year 2027, based on 4-year average of FTEs, fiscal year 22 to 25, and headcount, the new distribution ratio is now 37, 29, 34, and 33, 30, and 37. So it's the average of these two. And so based on that averages, this is how the distribution will work. And of course, we already know that our state allocation for enrollment goes up to 54 million. So that distribution compared to fiscal year 26 means Central gains 191,750, North gains 1.1 million, and South gains 2 million in the process, for a total increase to the district of 3.3 million. And here's the actual data. So you'll see how Central, for instance, relating to FTE, I've seen from fiscal year 22, 38% going down to 37, 37, and in fiscal year 25 going to 35. North started with 29, went down to 28, 28, and has picked it up 31% starting in fiscal year 25. And South, of course, has this steady increase and a decrease in fiscal year 25. The headcount is something that has not been part of the allocation model. So you'll see how the headcount also fare out among the 3 colleges, where South have more headcounts than FTEs predominantly. So now projecting for fiscal year 23 and 28, because it now will include our enrollment performance this fiscal period, fiscal year 2027. So once again, when the old model is based on a target, our allocation was 9.92%. In the new allocation, based on historical projections for fiscal year 27, we actually gained from 9.92% to 10.4% because of the proportionate share that we have through the system average. So this is all other colleges average. The system FTEs is 91,617. The headcount is 200. And this is where we're at in terms of our 4-year average. So our ratio is 10.2 and 10.6, averaging 10.4. So there was a gain in that process. So doing the target scenario planning when we use this model, so we anticipated that if we want to maintain a 10.4% ratio of the system allocation, and we project that the system will grow at 8 or 5%. This gives us a scenario that as a system, we need to grow by 4% in FTE or 4.6% in headcount, an additional of 401 or 886 this fiscal period, in order to maintain our 10.4% ratio of the allocation. Sadly, the status of fall quarter, we did not anticipate the growth. District-wide, we actually are down by 3%. We just verified this number. Spring is showing the same way. So overall, our FTE is down by 3%, and our headcount is also down by 0.2%. So based on this number, our new ratio is now going down from 10.4 to 10.29. So what does that mean? So at 10.4, our allocation is 54,307. Assuming the same amount is available for the enrollment allocation base, that means by going from 10.4 to 10.29, we will lose, because our enrollment is down, we could potentially lose 500,000 500,000 in our enrollment allocation base. So that's why it's now very important to really monitor and to continue to grow in ensuring our position in terms of the enrollment allocation base. And here's how it looks. So we're dropping fiscal year 22, and we're going to add fiscal year 26 now for fiscal year 2028. So you'll see the projection with the reduction, and you'll see how that proportion is faring out among the colleges. So based on the new formula where we went from 10.4 to 10.29, the distribution then will change from 54 to 53, and the allocation once again will shift between colleges, wherein whatever reduction that we're anticipating because of the move from 10.4 to 10.29, and for this particular fiscal period, North is growing, South was also reduced, and so is Central. You'll see the redistribution of the enrollment number by adding this year, where Central will be reduced by 428. North will receive an increase of 404 with their growth in enrollment, and South will also go down by 430. I hope this presentation is helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call. I'm happy to provide some additional information or presentation that's needed with your team. Thank you.